coming to you from snowy Michigan. Seriously, we got like 3 inches of snow last night in Michigan. It is the Gingin's 1-year Trailiversary edition. It is indeed April 4th, 2018. Recently, I was cleaning out my crap that I've been storing at my dad's house, including boxes of stuff that I had on the trail or stuff that I sent home from the trail while I was hiking. One of the treasures that I uncovered was my journal that I had with me when I began the trail. Turns out I'm super bad at journaling. This is not news to me. Throughout my entire life, every time I've attempted to journal, I've failed miserably. The AT was no different. But I do have a couple journal entries in here, one of which is the journal entry from 1 year ago today, and I thought I would share with all of you in celebration of my 1-year Trailiversary. So here it is. April 4, 2017. Day 1, Amicalola to Springer Mountain Shelter. 9 miles hiked, mile 0.2 of the Appalachian Trail. After a day delay due to the severe storms, I finally began my AT through hike. A man from the Amicalola Lodge took my picture, wished me well, and arranged for a member of his staff to drive me to the bottom of the hill. So I'm waiting for my ride down the hill. It is a gorgeous day to be starting the trail. Check-in was behind the visitor center, where a man named Bob stamped this page and signed me in. Hiker number 1544, as in 1,544 people have already started the trail. I was the 16th hiker today, and it was only 9:30 a.m. Wow. I weighed my pack at the scale out front. 39 pounds. Too much food. Finished signing in, took some photos, met a few hikers, including Wes, and started my hike. Everything was overwhelmingly beautiful. I wanted to, and did, stop to take photos every few hundred feet. Later in the day, I had finally restricted myself to 1 video per hour, or every time there was something significant, at least to me. Not much of a restriction. The first significant part of the approach trail is the stairs. 604 of them to be exact. For all the hype, I didn't think they were that bad. We'll see how I feel in the morning though. There were honestly sections of the uphill climb not on the stairs I thought were worse. A bit up the trail, I met fellow thru-hikers as I passed them on their water and snack breaks. Dominic from Quebec, a few more I can't remember their names, 2 guys with names starting with the letter D who actually passed me, and Meredith, who was hiking with her aunt, uncle, and friend, Chelsea. I played leapfrog with Meredith and crew until I decided to break for lunch, and they all sat down to join me. Aunt and uncle were there for day 1 moral support and left us to return to North Carolina after lunch. They had a music festival to attend. Before hiking away, they offered to carry out any trash, which I happily handed over, along with my extra day of food. Aunt also gave us some of her water, since we weren't sure when the next water source would actually be. Meredith and Chelsea hiked ahead, while I lathered up in sunscreen. Forgot my arms. Whoops. It was hot today. Clear sunny skies and no leaves on the trees to shade the trail. Sunscreen is a must. Just getting packed back up, put on some sunscreen because it is sunshine today. This is the time of year that my skin's gonna fry. It seemed like forever until the first water source on the trail that was actually flowing. I was pretty excited to find it and to use my filter. Thanks, Gadget. And also have water. Not long after the water source, I decided to break and tape up the hot spots that had developed on my feet before they became blisters. Here I met Parker, but didn't learn his name until later. We each sat on logs in front of Black Gap Shelter, chatting while I taped my toes. Parker left, and a few hikers I had seen earlier decided to call it a day and stay at the shelter. I was determined to make it to Springer. It was so close, I could feel it. I passed a few more hikers on the way to Springer, but mostly I hiked alone. My mind is still adjusting to the idea that I'm not just a weekend warrior this time. This is for real, and this is for 6 months. All day, every day. Just before Springer, I ran into Wes again. Fun fact, Wes and I are neighbors. Or at least we were. He lives in Lakewood, on I forget which street, but maybe a mile away. Small world. We hiked together for a minute, but Wes needed a break, so I continued on to Springer. I finally made it. The emotions that overcame me are indescribable. We're here? my gosh. Ah, we made it. Holy cow. Is that our first white blaze?
First white blaze.
Oh my gosh. Woo! Look at that. We made it. This is real. This is happening. This is the beginning. Wow. The guy in the green took my picture before Wes showed up. We all hung out at the summit in celebration for a while. We finally made it. Anxious about getting a spot at the shelter, I went ahead. Home for tonight, I think. Let's see how full it is. It was empty. Parker was there, and another guy who decided to push on to the next shelter a few miles ahead. I dropped my pack and slip on my camp shoes, and then spent the next hour or so stumbling over myself while I stared dumbfounded at all of my gear, not knowing what to do. Seriously, I have no idea what I'm doing. Eventually, I managed to put together my sleep system on the shelter floor next to Parker. Time out. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning as I'm writing this, and just now a mouse ran up and crawled into my sleeping bag. At least it wasn't a spider. So, brief story, I was writing this journal entry at 3 o'clock in the morning, and as everybody was sleeping and I was journaling, a mouse did try to dive into my sleeping bag, and I screamed and flung the mouse across the shelter and woke up everybody who was sleeping there, and then continued writing. Back to the writing now. As I settled into the shelter, I almost wish it had been full so that I would have had an excuse to sleep in my tent, more protected from the spiders. I scanned the corners and walls looking for any hidden monsters. Deep breath, this is home for the night. Moments later, Wes and Kelsey showed up, just as surprised as we were to learn that we were the only ones at the shelter so far. While they chose their floor spots, I walked down to filter some water for the night. I seriously love my little trail shot. Not certain what I should do next, I decided on dinner. Mountain House chicken dumplings. Yum. After dinner, I fumbled around some more with my gear and finally got myself enough put together to hang my food bag. Bare cables here, clutch. Over the course of the next hour or so, our shelter accumulated a few more hikers. The chef grabbed some space next to Kelsey, and Lindsay and Chives invaded Wes's loft. Trail ambassadors John and Joe stopped by to welcome us and to take count of who was through hiking and who was section hiking. We're all going to Maine. At least that's the plan. And so we had our crew for the night. As the sun began to fall, Wes pointed out the color through the trees. Anyone up for sunset on Springer Mountain, I asked. With pants, jackets, and headlamps, we all backtracked the 0.2 miles to the summit and spent the hour cracking jokes at one another while the sky and the mountains changed colors before our eyes. I could not imagine a more perfect end to a more perfect day on the AT. I am so glad I waited rather than starting in the wind and the rain. There will be plenty of that tomorrow, apparently. Signed, Amelia. This is before I had the trail name Gin. So that's my journal entry from my first day on the Appalachian Trail. Thank you all for following along in my journey over the last 12 months. I am working hard to get the rest of my 2017 thru-hike videos published so I can share with all of you what I've been up to in 2018 and what adventures I have planned for the rest of this year and what future hikes I may be planning. I also want to say happy Trailiversary to Yahtzee, my first and original trail brother from the Appalachian Trail. Tried calling him today, did not get a hold of him. Yahtzee, if you're out there, pick up your phone and call me back. Also, I want to say happy Trailiversary to Chirp. She started on the same day that I did, but we did not meet until much later on the trail. Where did I meet? Somewhere after I hitched to Asheville for the wedding, but before I got to Hot Springs. I forget the name of the shelter, but I met her at a shelter. I think it's called the Half Pipe Shelter. I think that's where I met Chirp.